Greetings, my friends, and welcome to a little video on qualitative data analysis. So in the previous video, we talked about qualitative research methods and under what conditions you might want to use qualitative research methods and what kind of questions would be appropriate for qualitative research. Here I want to talk about how you would analyze the data from interviews or focus groups or observations, which is a really important consideration. So let's dive right into it. So again, qualitative data analysis involves the identification, examination, and interpretation of patterns and themes, right? So you're looking for patterns and themes in the textual data. So you're going to either take detailed notes of the interview, focus group, or observations, or with the permission of people, you can actually get the actual transcripts from interviews and focus groups. And then you're looking for themes and patterns that emerge from that data. And this is one of the reasons that the qualitative data analysis can be fairly time consuming. But again, you're looking for patterns and themes that will help you understand the particular research questions that you have posed. So again, so some overviews of here before we jump into some of the details, right? Qualitative analysis is not guided by universal rules. As we'll see, there certainly are some steps to go through, but it's not as specific as if you're going to do like a calculate a standard deviation in descriptive statistics or a t-test in descriptive statistics or inferential statistics. It's going to be, those are both quantitative methods I was talking about before. Qualitative is not going to be as specific with universal rules. There's an overview, but less rigid. It's a very fluid process that's highly dependent on the evaluator and the context of the study. So as we'll talk about, the steps we're going to go over, depending on what your research question is and what method of qualitative research you're employing, it could be a little bit different. We'll talk about that as we go. And again, it's likely to change and adapt as the study evolves. So it's a much more flexible data analysis process. So we're going to talk about steps to go through, but recognize that the steps are often not completely distinct. They often blend into one another, and you may have to go back and forth between some of these as you're doing things. So let's take a look at, first of all, some questions to continually ask yourself as you're analyzing your qualitative data, right? What patterns and themes are emerging around specific items in the data? You're always asking yourself that as you're doing the interviews, observations, or focus groups, right? Are there any deviations from these patterns that are interesting, or are the patterns and themes really consistent? Because if there are deviations from the patterns and themes, you're going to want to try to understand why. So be on the lookout for those. What interesting stories emerge from the data that may help to support the patterns and themes I'm seeing? So are there particularly interesting stories from the focus groups or interviews or observations that really are great examples that help you to understand the phenomenon under study? You want to really pay close attention to those. Do any of the patterns or themes that emerge suggest that you're actually probably going to need to dig more deeply? That there's, in other words, as patterns and themes emerge, are there other questions that may emerge from them that may lead to further study? Are the patterns that emerge and themes that emerge connected to previous research that's been done on the topic, right? So by the time you do some qualitative research, you know something about your topic, you've looked at previous research. Are the things you're finding consistent with that previous research, or are they different, right? Both can be really interesting. Okay, so let's take a look at the 6 steps in the qualitative data analysis process. Step 1. As soon as you do your focus group or your interview or make your observation, you're going to want to process your data, if at all possible, on the same day. So let's say you do an interview or a focus group in the morning. Don't wait till a week from now to go back and take a look at that, right? So as soon as the data is collected, it's critical that you immediately process the information and record detailed notes, right? And so you want to, what things stuck out to you about the person's body language, what they said, how they said it. Anything else that you can think of, you're going to want to go ahead and go through the transcript of the interview, your notes from the focus group or interview on the day that you took it. Really, really important, because you don't want to rely on your memory. Your memory is going to fade. Step 2, start to actually analyze the data as you're collecting it. So as you're doing the interview, the focus group, the observation, and as you're processing it, you want to begin to look for patterns and themes right off the bat, right? The moment the first pieces of data are collected, you should begin reviewing the data and mentally processing it for themes or patterns that may be exhibited, all right? Step 3, you're going to have a lot of data, even from a relatively small number of interviews. So if you do 8 one-hour interviews, you're going to have many, many pages of data. And so at some point, after you begin to process it and look for patterns and themes, you're going to want to start to reduce that data to only what is meaningful, right? Most of it probably isn't going to be meaningful. You're looking for the chunks that are meaningful. So after the data has been collected, you will need to undergo a data reduction process to identify and focus on what's meaningful, right? And eliminate the stuff that isn't. It's your job as the evaluator, as the analyzer, right, to comb through the raw data to determine what's significant and transform the data into a simplified format that can be understood. So you may be taking a 10-page interview and reducing it to a page or a page and a half of what is really most meaningful. That's how much you may actually be reducing the data in this stage. Step 4, identifying meaningful patterns and themes. This started with step 2, continued with step 3, and by step 4, you really want to start to see if you can piece together some consistent patterns and themes across all of your data that you've collected, right? So yeah, you're going to be grouping it into meaningful patterns or themes that you observe, and this is really the core of the qualitative data analysis process. That's the reason you're doing it. You're trying to find patterns and themes that emerge in the data that's going to help you address your particular research question. You're going to be looking at the kind of the meaning of the words themselves in terms of what people say, and then also you're going to be looking for themes that emerge that kind of run across everything at the same time. Step 5, we're going to have to work on some way to display our data, both to help you organize it, but mostly you're going to want to be communicating this, of course, to your reader in some type of a formal report. So you've got to be thinking about ways to put this data into a format that can be understandable and can lead to some conclusions. And again, this display can be graphic, there can be a table, or there can be different ways that you're kind of reporting quotes that support a particular pattern or theme from your data. The key is that you're trying to distill it into the most meaningful chunks that really help you and the reader see the themes and the patterns that have emerged from the data. Step 6, drawing conclusions and verifying what those conclusions are, right? This is the final step. So you're taking all the data that you have, you're going back and connecting it to your research questions, and you're saying, okay, based on the data I've collected, these are the conclusions. And again, you want to make sure that you're always asking, what is the evidence that I've gotten from my data collection that's supporting those particular conclusions? And then going back and verifying and double checking that that's actually what came from the interviews, focus groups, or observations. Okay. To draw reasonable conclusions, you're going to need to step back and interpret what all of your findings mean. Determine how your findings help answer the research question. Always directly connect it to that research question. And to verify your conclusions, make sure you revisit the data multiple times to confirm the conclusions that you have drawn. Again, these 6 steps are fluid. You may go back to an earlier step periodically, but if you keep these 6 steps in mind, this will help you get the meaning from qualitative data analysis. This is a time-consuming process. It takes patience. It takes real diligence. And so don't think that qualitative data analysis is easy just because it doesn't involve complex calculations. It can be often more challenging than quantitative data analysis because it actually takes more time and more patience. Thanks so much, everybody. Once again, don't hesitate to reach out with questions, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.